How do you send your bonsai across the world? That is a good question, a question I often get, and a question I find very difficult to answer. Now, last year I made a video in which I sent a very small tree around the world, and I showed you how I packaged this. Now the time has come for this vaccines to leave my garden, and it needs to be shipped. Now this is a fairly large pot, it's fairly heavy, it requires some additional attention to arrive safely in Austria. In this video I'm going to build a crate, going to put it in a container, I'm going to put it in a box, I'm going to wrap it all up and I'm going to send it off. And if the recipient is nice to send me some footage, I'll also show you that the tree has safely arrived in Austria. Now of course I need loads and loads of material to build a box, so I have a whole bunch of old wooden slats and more parts, old pallets, and of course I'm going to have to put this together, so let's get my saw. Of course a very big box. Plastic to wrap it up. Tape. My drill. Some screws. Lug it all outside and start chopping this all up, shall we? Now, what are the main concerns when you are trying to ship a tree? First of all, of course, you can be quite concerned that it is in transport a long time. And during transport, of course, the pot can dehydrate. So what do? Of course, we wrap the pot. Now it is important to make sure that the substrate is nicely filled to the rim. Otherwise, the tree can start shaking in the pot, particularly if it is not wired in, as this one isn't. I'm going to fill the pot up, I'm going to wrap it up. Then, another thing that I'm always concerned about, this is a fairly small pot. If it goes into a box, people lift the box, the bottom might fall through. So I position the tree on a wooden slate, and then the tree can't fall through the bottom of the box anymore. As always, make sure you measure correctly, and if necessary, check your sizes. Measure twice, cut once. This is waste, keeping this side. This of course doesn't come down to the millimeter. Perfect fit. Just like that. And now connect it to the first part. Now before I start chopping and sawing and putting things together, I always make a few sketches on how I want to connect things. I have a rough schematic in my mind, and I don't make a full schematic. I just say, well, I need the length of the box twice, I need the height of the box 4 times. The box of course needs to be high enough so that all the branches are free from the top. So this is not going to be folded closed, I'm just going to glue this together and put a separate top. When measuring, don't take the outside of the box, take the inside of the box. Now, what do we say? This is 58. I need the width of the box twice, is 50 on the inside. And that way I have the rough schematics of the materials that I need. This is of course all going to add to the weight. But what happens if you put the box upside down? Exactly. The tree can topple over, fall down, break all the branches on the top. So therefore I am attaching the pot also to the wooden slate, and I'm using a couple of wires. This is a little bit of tricky engineering and you have to figure out how that works best. Yeah, just take a look on how I do it. Now what I then want to do is I want to make sure that this whole contraption stays in the box safely, because still, even though it's connected to the slot, it can fall over. Now you can do that of course by putting wires through the bottom of the box, but that can pull through the cardboard, especially with a heavier box like this, especially with a heavier tree like this one. So what I like to do, I make a frame. I need 4 pieces of wood that are exactly as long as the box is high, and I attach that to 2 more, pieces of wood that are exactly as long as the box is wide. With this I create a frame that fits
40.
exactly in the box. So just like this, we now have the base. The tree comes on here, and then the whole thing slides into the box, just like that, look. Then with the verticals, I'm just going to put them here on the inside corner, which is just to provide stability. Of course, the order of construction is important, because once I connect this to the bottom pot, once I connect the pot to the bottom strut, I can't really work on these anymore. So I first need to make these sides. Connect this to the bottom, make these H's for the top, and then be done with it. Just like that. Keep on thinking, don't just act. Think twice, measure twice, and then act. So here, on edge, it's just one screw, so there's a little bit of flexibility. And now the question, of course, for the top bar, I think it might be useful to actually do what I did think initially and leave a little bit of space. Right, final fitting. Looks like a perfect fit to me. Now for connecting the tree to the bottom slot, I'm going to use steel wire, just to guide the steel wire and make sure it can't slide sideways. And this again is not exact work, right? It just needs to sit there, aiding in securing things. I know this feels like overkill, but at least the tree will not slide around in the box. And I like to cross wires. Don't know why, it always feels like it is a lot more stable. 1 and 2. And then as if you are putting it, as if you're wiring the root ball in a pot, I just tighten it. Where tight is tight, right? Don't need to squash the pot, just sits there to make sure it can't move during transport. Testing. That is stable enough, I suppose. Right, guess now it is time to just put the sides on and put it in the box and close it up. And also here, of course, a pilot hole roughly in the middle. It doesn't come to an exact size, right? It just needs to go in. In this case, it is important that the head of the screw goes all the way down in the head, because otherwise it will take a lot of space. Moment of truth is now, of course, getting it into the box and see whether it really fits in here. Beautiful. Now this box can be closed and the tree is secure for transport. Of course, you cannot be worried about this tree then being squashed from top to bottom. So also at the top of those 4 vertical stakes, I'm putting a piece of wood. This will now effectively, with a crossbeam, ensure that the box can't be compressed all that much. And of course, one last ultimate stability test. That should be right.